Welcome, and thank you for participating in today's committee meeting. If attending in person, please do not connect to Zoom or teleconference while in the room. To prevent disruptions, please silence all devices. All participants on Zoom and on the phone, except for committee members and South Coast AQMD staff, will be placed on mute. You will not be able to mute or unmute your line manually. After each item, public comment will be taken. If you are participating in person at a location listed on the agenda and wish to comment, please raise your hand when comments are called for. If you are participating on Zoom and wish to comment, please click on the Raise Hand button. If you are participating by phone and wish to comment, please dial *9. If you are participating via Zoom or phone, when it is your turn, the host will unmute your line. Speakers may be limited to a total of 3 minutes or less for all items on the agenda. Following the meeting agenda items, a general public comment period will provide the public an opportunity to speak on any items not on the agenda within the committee's authority. During the general public comment period, speakers may be limited to 3 minutes or less. The amount of time to comment may be shortened to ensure all speakers can be heard. A countdown timer may be displayed on the screen for each public comment. For questions or issues related to making public comment, please call the public advisor at 909-396-3247. In terms of decorum, in accordance with state and local public health department guidelines, people may choose to wear a mask based on personal preference while in South Coast AQMD facilities. Please adhere to the speaker time limit and treat others with courtesy, civility, and respect. Failure to do so can result in your mic being muted or you being removed from the meeting. Lastly, please be aware that this meeting is being recorded. By participating, is recording of audio and visual content presented during the live event and consent to subsequent use of the recording in the public by South Coast AQMD.
Alrighty, I believe this is me saying meeting is called to order at 12:32 p.m. Can we do roll call?
Yes. Gabriela Ballesteros. Emmanuel Cruz. Here. Mai Do. Here. Aditi Gajurel. Yes. Matthew Wei.
Present.
Yifan Lee. Here. Vanessa Melesio. Here. Michael Schumer. Hayato Shigeta. Glenn Duran. Here. Selena Vargas. Andres Cornell.
Here.
Ryan Drover.
Here.
Nora Kiasa. Sierra Thrower. Present. Roxana Barrera. Here. Yolanda Aguilar Caldera. Angel Lira.
Here.
Joshua Shield.
Present.
Helen Estrada. Mark Flores.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Welcome. It is I'm just honored to be in space with you all. This is the Young Leaders Advisory Council. My name is Dr. Sessa Hurd Johnson. I'm the Deputy Executive Officer for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion with Community Air Programs. And I am your tour guide. No, I am the facilitator of this group. I would love to introduce you to the team of people it took to bring us all here today. Before we actually do introductions of you all, So I'll start over here to my left with Carolina, and we'll go down and introduce the staff that we have here supporting our meeting.
Hello, everyone. I'm Carolina Vargas, staff assistant, diversity, equity, and inclusion with community art programs.
Hello, my name is Paula Service. I'm the senior office assistant for the DEI department.
Good afternoon, everyone. Francis Fernando, Senior Public Affairs Specialist with also Diversity and Inclusion.
Hi, good afternoon. Josephine Lee, Senior Deputy District Counsel with our General Counsel's Office.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cassandra Johnson. I go by Cassie, and I'm the Senior Public Affairs Specialist with Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Community Art Programs.
And then over here.
Hi, guys. My name is Heather. I'm the Senior Administration Assistant to Dr. Cessa Hurd Johnson with Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Community Art Programs.
And if it were not for these folks and some other folks who are not here, we would not be in here in this space, in this room with that wonderful lunch. So how our meetings go is that folks can eat while we are meeting. So it's during the lunch hour. We recognize that folks may be coming from different locations. And so just real quick, I think is it passion tea? Green tea? Yeah. It's green tea and some passion stuff, lemonade, water, mac and cheese, woo! And then some salads, some seasonal salads, and then some sandwiches. So my children are at home, so you do not have to ask permission. I am no one's parent. So you just want to get up and go. That's cool. Housekeeping remarks, where would the nearest restrooms be? Do we know?
Right where I walk you through is going to be the nearest one. So right, you turn left out of here, you'll see restroom sign right on the left-hand side.
So again, don't feel the need to ask for permission. If you raise your hand, I won't recognize that. Those things you can just kind of get up and go and do. So thank you again for being in the space for our first YLAC meeting for 2024. I'd like to give this as an opportunity for have you all introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about the community that you represent and maybe why you're here today. So we'll just go around the room. Are we feeling a little clockwise or counterclockwise?
Clockwise?
And so because you spoke first, we're going to start with you.
Alrighty.
That's a little sneaky trick. All right. So, and then you said clockwise?
Yes.
Yeah. And so we will go clockwise. So then we'll go around the room. Excellent. All right. Go ahead.
All right. Hey, hello, everyone. My name is Joshua Shield, and I am here to represent the San Bernardino community. Personally, I am extremely passionate about a number of the 8617 communities, particularly the Salton Sea. So those who are Riverside representatives, I might be talking to you. Outside of that, I am just extremely interested in talking and recognizing more of the community issues all around this jurisdiction and seeing how we can help people.
Hi, Joshua. Hi, everyone. My name is Vanessa Malesio. I represent LA County. I'm originally from San Bernardino County, but I was a local commuter for a long time. So I feel like I'm kind of in the middle there. I very much represent communities that are like transit rider needs at the very ground level and improving that. So that's why I'm here, is to share more about that and learn more about your perspectives.
Hello, my name is Emmanuel. I am from the city of Cudahy in LA. My community is extremely small, primarily mostly Hispanics and undocumented. So I feel like we really don't have a voice when it comes to air quality. So that's why I'm here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mai. I live actually 10 minutes from here along the 60 in the eastern part of the Los Angeles County. I also teach in Riverside. And so, and I'm from Santa Clarita. So the Chiquita Canyon landfill and issues of air quality are very close to my heart.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Flores. I'm from Orange County. I also work for the city of Santa Ana. And part of the reason I'm here is that we do a lot of by right developments, especially along the 5s. And so I'm just curious to see how this council is approaching it and just the staff here as well.
Hi, my name is Lynn Jung. I'm a part of the Los Angeles County as a representative of the Los Angeles County, and I'm currently a student, a poli-sci student at UCLA. Something that I'm really passionate is about public transit, and I'm currently advocating for the Sepulveda Transit Corridor. And hopefully to convince Metro to have a UCLA station so that commuters and staffers can use it in the near future.
Hi everyone, my name is Angel. I represent the San Bernardino County. I'm from Fontana, so warehousing and logistics industry is a big issue that I want to work on and talk about. But I'm also an ultra commuter, working on a campaign in Pasadena, so going back and forth. Rough commute, but yeah, it's a little bit about me and I'm excited to be here.
Hi everyone, I'm Aditi and I represent LA County. So I live in downtown and I'm a student right now at USC. So I'm more excited about how I can contribute to the community through this council on these ongoing air pollution issues.
Hi everyone, I'm Sierra. I work for California Environmental Voters. Born and raised in the Inland Empire, I feel like a lot of our communities often discarded. So something I'm really passionate about is increasing access from community members to government agencies. So I'm really excited here to be representing my community and finding ways for my community to sit at the table.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andres Coronel, and I'm from Palm Desert, California, which is within Riverside County. We're talking about ultra commuters. I went to UCLA and I never moved to LA. So from Palm Desert to UCLA. So I don't think it's a competition, but I have one beat. And then really recreation is what I'm passionate about. I serve on the foundation board for one of the largest recreation districts in the state. So I'm just here to see how we can find synergy between recreation and the great work AQMD does. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ethan Lee, and I represent LA County. So after last year's internship experience in South Coast AQMD, I know more about the policy AB 670, and I really want to know more about it and learn how to improve the air quality in each counties and each community. So that's why I am here.
Hi. Nice to see you. Hi, everybody. My name is Roxana Barrera. I also represent the San Bernardino County. I've been a community organizer since 2015. What really ignited or sparked more in me to want to do something about our air quality was the fact that my son has had respiratory issues since he was born. So I feel like that really fueled my fire. And I've been on the YLAC since 2019. So yeah, it's good to be back, and I am excited to see what else we could show. Hi.
Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm good to see friendly faces from the internship program this past summer. So I think that has done well with adopting some of us into sticking around here. I'm currently in Riverside County, originally from the Bay Area, but here as a Riverside County representative as I'm finishing up grad school at UC Riverside. And I split my work between two sides, really, where it's working with the ports, looking at the emissions side standpoint, but then also working with community health in the Salton Sea, as well as around those port areas. And obviously in the South Coast Air Basin, that's all connected from both the emissions to the health side, but then also thinking of what happens to the ports impacts us out in Riverside County and San Bernardino County. So this is just another of those ways to see how everything connects and comes together, again, with a good group of people here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Matthew, and I'm a current student at USC. And just really wanting to be here and learn more about the impacts of air quality and its positive impacts on the environment, and want to learn more how I can just maybe improve that in the future for the communities that I serve.
And I think we have someone behind us.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gabriella. I am from Los Angeles County, specifically I'm from Southgate, born and raised, and you know, a lot of this I'm really interested in, you know, in all this because the Southeast Los Angeles region, there's a lot of like industrial areas, and you know, it impacts air quality. And I think what kind of sparked my interest even further was the phasing out of hexavalent chromium. So in particular in Paramount, there was a really high, you know, rates of that in the community. So I just, in my day-to-day job, I'm actually a field representative for Assemblyman over Anthony Rendon. And so that's how I kind of got involved with the issue area. And I just think it's, you know, I'm really curious how policy kind of meets, community and public health and how we can just this larger with our air and really in the long term future, right? How do we create healthier communities? So yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You said Paramount.
Yes.
That's where I live.
Oh, okay.
She my friend. So again, Heather, do we have a quorum?
Yes, ma'am.
We have a quorum. Oh my goodness. I think you can really appreciate that. Yeah. Like in the past, we haven't had enough people to even vote on minutes. So I'm very happy to be, we're happy to be in space with you all. And so you all have gotten a copy of the agenda prior to coming. And so again, I just want to thank you for being in space. This is our first meeting. I'm so happy to hear that so many of you have a passion, an energy, advocacy for the very mission that we are here, which is South Coast Air Quality Management District. I'm very pleased that our Chief Operating Officer is on the call. I know she's regretting that she's not in person with us, but that's okay, right? She knows it. She knows it. And so I'm going to turn it over to Susan Nakamura, our Chief Operating Officer here at South Coast AQMD, to give us a little bit of background. So Susan, take it over.
All right. So I am disappointed that I'm not in space with all of you. I am really excited to hear from all of you. I love the passion and the energy. We like Sessa said, I think the last YLAC meeting, there were probably one or two representatives from YLAC. So YLAC came over to Sessa and she's really trying to invigorate it and elevate all of your voices. This is an opportunity for you to learn about the South Coast Air Quality Management District for those that haven't been through our internship program. And then it's a great opportunity for us to hear from you about the air quality issues and the community issues that are in your community and your perspective and your priorities. So it's a great opportunity for both all of us to engage and collaborate together. Looking forward to being in space with you in the next YLAC meeting. So welcome everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Susan. There is no shade in this at all. I am committed toward diversity, equity, inclusion. It is my job. And if we do not look at the intersectionality of age and environmental justice, we are not doing it right. And so that you all would be here and to be able to speak to it, you all represent such a diversity of location and issues. Does that mean one is worse than the other? No, it's all bad. But the fact that we're coming together in space to be able to talk about these issues, I'm just very pleased to have so much representation, so much diversity around the table. What is of interest to you, all that you have said, we're going to be able to figure out what our goals are going to be for a community as a committee, what we hope to achieve, because I want this to be worth your time, right? And so this is absolutely about you hearing about us, but it's also hearing about you and what is going on in your communities to better educate us. When this committee was founded, I think maybe 5 or 6 years ago, the person who was one of the founders had a conversation with me and told me why they found this so important. And it was, you all are the community that is most impacted by air pollution. You've been born in it, living in it. So it's like a whole generation of you can be born in it, live in it, have children in it, go to school in it, work in it. You know what I mean? Like that's a vicious cycle. And so it's really critical that we hear your voices. And so don't let anybody tell y'all you got to wait to give your feedback. Like you only are, legitimate after you've done it for 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. Count all that time from birth. That counts, right? It counts. So please, please, please know that your voices are welcomed. Your opinions, we don't all have to agree. I represent all the issues and concerns that you all have. So again, thank you for that. So next on our agenda is to talk about, I believe, the Brown Act and procedures. And so that is Sherry.
Hi, everybody. Can Paul or somebody upload the slide deck? Oh, thank you.
Paul is on it.
Nice. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Sherry Hani Zavara. I'm one of the attorneys here at the South Coast AQMD. I work with Josie, and I've been here for almost 10 years. And I actually used to be an intern here many years ago. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Ralph M. Brown Act, the Brown Act for short. This is all about government transparency. It sounds like a number of you are either working with government or have been involved with groups that talk to government. So you're probably familiar with the public process a little bit, but we're going to go into some details about it. So the basic policy here is that the people of the state of California need to be informed and keep some degree of control over their own government. And what I'm going to outline for you today is kind of a bird's eye view. There's going to be time at the end for questions. And next slide, please. So let me dive into the background a little bit more. The Brown Act was actually adopted in 1953. Again, this was for the purpose of ensuring that public commissions, boards, councils, and other public agencies in California take their action and conduct all of their deliberations openly. So I put some of the language up there, and some of the legislative intent states as follows. The people of the state do not yield their sovereignty to the agencies which serve them. The people in delegating authority do not give their public servants the right to decide what is good for them to know and what is not good for them to know. So the people have insisted on remaining informed so that they can retain control over the instruments that they've created. So next slide, please. So we're going to talk a little bit about who the Brown Act applies to. So it sounds a little vague in theory, but it applies to you, the members of the YLAC. So it applies to meetings of all legislative bodies. So what is a legislative body? It can be the governing board of the agency, which it sounds like a lot of you interned for. Commissions, again, county supervisors, city councils, and things like that. It also applies to, I'm sorry, I can hear some echo. Am I okay?
You're good.
Good, okay. It also applies to appointed bodies. So the YLAC is an appointed body. So this is a body that was created by the governing board at the South Coast AQMD, and the members are approved by the board as well. So governing board bodies, appointed bodies, and also standing committees. So if you've worked here before, if you've worked with us before, you know that we don't just have a governing board. We have a number of standing committees, which are a subset of the members of the governing board. So it could be administrative committee, stationary source, technology, et cetera. So these are all committees that have what's called continuing subject matter jurisdiction. So for instance, the YLAC has a specific set of subjects that you talk about. You talk about EJ and matters of concern for young leaders in the community. You meet on a regular schedule. That's kind of the basic kind of legislative body that the Brown Act is concerned with. What it doesn't apply to is what's called kind of an ad hoc advisory committee. So what an ad hoc committee is when you have, for instance, you have a really discrete issue that you need to resolve. And it's, let's say we need to build a park really quickly for some reason. And we need to get a group together that's less than a quorum of the legislative body, so less than a majority, to come together and really quickly get this action over with. So there's no continuing subject matter jurisdiction. It's just one discrete issue that they're meeting about. And once they finish that issue, you've given all your advice about the park or whatever that needs to be built, the committee's disbanded. So the Brown Act generally doesn't apply there. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk a little bit about meetings. Is a meeting of the Brown Act. So next slide. So a meeting in Brown Act terminology is a gathering of the legislative body. So this is probably the most important series of slides because sometimes it surprises people what counts as a Brown Act meeting and what doesn't. But here's kind of the basic overview. A meeting is any congregation of a majority of a Brown Act body getting together at the same time in the same place to hear, discuss, deliberate, or take action on any of the items that's within their subject matter jurisdiction. So what you're doing right now is a regular Brown Act meeting. And there are a couple different kinds of Brown Act meetings. The two that are kind of most important or that will most likely come up are regular meetings and special meetings. A regular meeting is what we're doing now. It's a meeting that occurs at dates and times that were already predetermined or pre-established. And they have specific noticing requirements, which we'll talk about in a second. A special meeting is a meeting that's maybe a little more urgent. We didn't have time to put together a full agenda. We're going to release an agenda that talks about one specific item that we need to go over. We don't have to give as much public notice. And I'll talk about notice again in a few minutes. Next slide, please. So I want to talk about what counts and what doesn't count as a meeting in a little more detail. So a good example of what you shouldn't do is, let's say a majority of you on the YLAC get together, and it could be anywhere. It could be at a coffee shop or wherever it is, at someone's house. You get together as a majority and you discuss something that's on, the YLAC agenda or something within your subject matter jurisdiction. You start making decisions. You're basically holding a meeting, but you didn't tell the public that the meeting was occurring. So sometimes it's easy to kind of fall into that, where you kind of congregate in the corner and start talking about these issues that are relevant to the YLAC or whatever the subject matter is of the committee that you're sitting on. But be careful with that because that could count as a prohibited meeting. So what we try to do is every time you get together, we give public notice so that the public can attend and be part of that decision-making process. So there are a few things that don't count as Brown Act meetings. Individual contacts, which I'm going to discuss in the next slide in a little more detail, but basically, you can talk one-on-one, or maybe you have a question for someone on staff here, you want some clarity on something, you can reach out and ask. So individual contacts are fine. Things like conferences and community meetings, you all do attend these kinds of meetings and you're active in your communities. A majority of you on the YLAC can attend a conference. You can attend a community meeting. You can attend, a committee meeting here. So long as you keep the focus on the conference or that community meeting, and you don't kind of congregate amongst yourselves to, again, talk about YLAC related business, because we don't want it to turn into kind of a sneak YLAC meeting. And then also social relationships. So if, we don't want to prohibit people hanging out as friends. If you spend time as friends, or, sometimes our committee members do ceremonial roles within the communities, throwing out a first pitch or something like that at a baseball game. Those kinds of things are fine if a majority of you attend. Next slide. So individual contacts, again, employees at the AQMD are available to answer questions and things like that. And you can reach out and get more information from them. So it's not like you're calling a meeting of the YLAC, but maybe you're getting clarification. What we want you to not do or to avoid doing is then to, let's say you ask staff a question about Paramount or something like that, to then communicate what you heard from staff to the rest of the young leaders when you're not in a Brown Act meeting. So it can be discussed if it's agendized at a meeting, but try not to take that information back to a majority of the members and discuss it. Next slide, please. So individual contacts can also be a bit tricky. Sometimes you can have a series of communications. So one person talks to one person, and then that person goes and talks to another person. It's all each conversation is less than a quorum, but when you take it as a whole, you've basically circumvented the Brown Act, and we want you to avoid doing that too. So there's two examples here I want to give you. The first one is kind of like the game of telephone. It's called daisy chain. So, member A calls up member B to discuss something that is YLAC related. Member B then calls member C to tell them what they talked about with member A, and so on and so forth. So again, it looks like it's just two of you talking, but then you've gone down the chain, and soon a majority of the members know what you've talked about. So again, we want those conversations to be out in the open. The second kind of impermissible meeting is called hub and spoke. It can be a couple different things. It can be member A individually has conversations with member B, then member C, then member D and E. And so you've kind of talked to everybody about the same subject, but you've done it like in pieces. So again, we want to avoid that, or we want to avoid going through an intermediary. So that an intermediary then talks to each member of the committee. So I think the basic thing is just ensure that when a majority of you gather, you do the things that we're going to talk about next, which is like you notice the meeting, you let the public in, you let the public comment. Next slide. So this all doesn't just apply to when you talk to each other in person or on the phone. Actually using emails, text messages, and social media. We're going to touch on each of these like briefly. Be aware that if a majority of folks use these means of communication to talk, that becomes a prohibited Brown Act meeting. So we want to avoid that too. One of the examples I can give you of how this might happen to you is, let's say staff sends out the agenda for a young leaders meeting. And what they probably do, and they've probably done already, is they email everybody on the committee a copy of the agenda. What we want to avoid is then, as a member of the young leaders, to hit reply all and start talking about what's on the agenda. Because then that starts usually a chain of emails, right? And we can get a majority of the members involved in an email chain, and that's considered a prohibited Brown Act meeting. So avoid hitting reply all. That's usually just good advice in general, I think. Text messages I'll touch on a little bit, and that hits the Public Records Act. There was a time when people weren't sure if they used their personal cell phones to text about government business, if that counted as a public record. But this City of San Jose case that I've cited here, a member of the public basically requested a bunch of records, including texts and emails from city council members. And they said they didn't, the council members didn't want to turn over their phones. The court said you have to, if what you're discussing on your personal device is is agency business. So that's two things to think about. One, you don't want to have that impermissible serial meeting via text message. And two, if you do, it might become public. Next slide, please. Same with social media. So what you're going to want to do is avoid a situation where you start a conversation like in the comment section on like Instagram or any other social media engine where you're all replying to each other on an issue that's related to young leaders. Now, if you're friends and you're friends on Instagram and someone posts a picture that's like of their pet or their family or something, you can certainly comment, but try not to transform the conversation into something that's related to this committee. So there was a bill that actually amended the Brown Act to touch on this issue a couple of years ago. What you can do as members of the committee or other public officials can do is provide information to the public, solicit information from the public, answer questions that the public might have. But again, just avoid turning that into a conversation. And to be extra safe, it's been recommended that you kind of avoid, if one of your, one of the members of the committee or any committee says something, again, within the subject matter of the committee that you really like or support, you can silently support it, but maybe avoid hitting like, retweeting, or responding, because it's kind of a gray area at the moment. There's no court case I can give you about downvoting or upvoting, but
Yeah, so we exit it. I think
the
it's-
general advice. Next slide, please. So, next slide. So we're just going to talk briefly about what's required for a meeting. This is how the public kind of gets a sense of what's going to happen at a meeting. Before you can have a regular meeting, and again, that's what we're having right now, what you have to do is post an agenda. The agenda advises the public of what's going to be discussed. So if you notice on the agenda, there's like a brief paragraph under each item that explains what's going to happen, who's going to talk. The agenda also has to have the location of where you're meeting, the time that you're meeting. If somebody is participating remotely and that somebody is also a member of the committee itself, their location should also be written on the agenda. The agenda should be posted somewhere in public that's ADA accessible, that everybody can see. So when you walked in today, you might have noticed right outside the double doors, there's a poster board with a bunch of agendas on it. So we try to make it as easily accessible as possible. You can post it online, but you can't just post it online. It has to be available physically because we don't want to assume that everybody has internet access. Let's see, next slide, please. So again, this is just kind of reiterating what I talked about. One other thing I want to mention is, within reason, if folks are requiring an alternative format of an agenda or a different language that hasn't already been posted, those should be provided, again, because we want to make sure as many people as possible know about the meeting, and we want to make sure we're not closing anyone out needlessly. So next slide, please. So this is just a quick, we talked about regular meetings with a 72-hour notice. A special meeting, again, that's something that kind of might come up, hey, we're between governing board meetings or we're between YLAC meetings, but we have something really urgent that we need to discuss. And there's a kind of a time limit on it. We need to discuss it before next month comes around. So in those cases, you have a special meeting. You only need to give 24-hour notice. All the other requirements are the same. You have to give it the time and place. You have to make it accessible. The only other difference is you can't conduct any other business other than this one thing that you're meeting to talk about. Next slide. So the next couple of slides, non-agendized items. So if something comes up that's not on the agenda, you generally shouldn't talk about it. So, you're gathering there. I think there's 8 or 9 agenda items today. They're all pretty general. So, I think there's a lot of room to talk about a lot of different topics. But let's say someone wants to talk about, I don't know, a project that isn't noticed on the agenda and maybe doesn't necessarily have any ties to any of the other agenda items. What we want to do is avoid that, because what happens is there are people who would have attended the meeting if they'd have known you would discuss that, and they didn't attend because it wasn't publicly noticed, right? So we want it to be publicly noticed every time. Now, there are emergency situations. There are situations that require immediate action. This is usually more relevant to city councils and state agencies where there's like a threat of some sort of disaster or state of emergency that happens. It generally doesn't happen here. I don't think we've had an emergency meeting, to my knowledge, in the last 10 years or so. But next slide, please. So in addition to things that aren't agendized, sometimes you'll notice, we might get into a discussion that is a little bit more detailed or not necessarily something we thought of when we made the agenda. So there's a little bit of wiggle room for that. If a member of the public testifies, the board can respond to that testimony. That's permitted. The board can ask for clarification. You know, if somebody testifies that there's a nuisance event by their house, you know, maybe the board wants to know more about that. Or the board can ask staff, like, hey, what is this nuisance event? Can you explain from your perspective what happened? So you can go, you know, a little bit, it's not off topic, it's connected. So there's some limitations about what you can do that's not necessarily agendized. Next slide, please. So the Brown Act, it's all about public participation and transparency. So what we need to do is allow the public time to talk about a couple of things. So one, they can give general public comment, and that's on anything within the general subject matter jurisdiction of the committee. So somebody could come today to this committee meeting and talk about, you know, EJ or just anything that's not necessarily agendized, but it's something that this council has, you know, subject matter jurisdiction over. They can give that general public comment. Also, if there are discrete items, so after this item, for instance, someone can, from the public, raise their hand and ask a question about the Brown Act. So people should be able to talk, again, give general public comment and then comment on each agenda item. There should be limited, you know, there can be time limits that are reasonable. You know, you've probably noticed at some city council meetings, there's like 200 people who want to speak. We can't necessarily give everybody 5 minutes, so there can be cutoffs within reason. And I mentioned before teleconference locations, and I mentioned that because if a member of the YLAC can't make it in and they need to attend remotely, their address, wherever they're teleconferencing in from, is on the agenda, and that means a member of the public can come to where that person is at and make public comment. So, you know, a lot of people want to attend remotely from their home, but then when they realize they have to address and anybody can come in and make comment, they don't. Though some do. Some people are brave, others not necessarily. And if you are at home and you do give that, and you do, you have to make it has to be publicly accessible. In other words, you can't, you know, if your home is like not ADA accessible, we can't have public comment there. People need to be able to access you. So, you know, the teleconference noticing can't be a way to get out of public participation. You also need to post the agenda on your door. So, so it's like everything is kind of the same, except you're at your own house or wherever you happen to be. Next slide. So this probably won't impact this council, but I wanted to talk about it quickly because it's the Brown Act issue that comes up a lot. There are certain topics to be addressed behind closed doors, so to speak. This is called closed session. So the default is all meetings are public, but you need express legal authority to kind of close a meeting, go behind closed doors and talk. What you have to do is on the agenda, again, what you're talking about has to be described, not in detail because it may be confidential, but you need to say during closed session, we're going to talk about, you know, A versus B litigation. So that's probably the best example I can give, is that sometimes the board might want to talk to its general counsel about some litigation that it's in the middle of. Litigation is generally confidential. So we don't want to give away our litigation strategy out in the public. There are some instances where you can go back in closed session and talk about those things. Next slide. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about the impacts of the pandemic, because they did impact how we run meetings now, and some penalties. Next slide. So teleconferencing, again, the general rule is that a quorum of the members of the committee should be located within the jurisdiction of the agency. So, within the 4-county region that we have authority over. And again, as I mentioned, traditionally you have to notice your location, and everything's publicly available and publicly accessible. During the pandemic, especially when the pandemic first hit, a lot had to be changed. And then, kind of the aftermath of that, we realized that teleconferencing is actually a good option because we can continue the business of the agency without as many hiccups if we have more options to meet within reason. So there's still some teleconferencing options that were available during the pandemic that are still available. I'm not sure if they're applicable to this particular advisory committee. That might be something that the chair has to weigh in on. I'm not sure. I haven't seen it necessarily with other committees, but I've seen it with our governing board. In very limited circumstances, if you have an emergency, like a family care issue, or something that just absolutely prevents you from coming, you can ask to appear remotely without having to give your address and make your home publicly available. But you can only do that a certain number of times, and you do have to appear on screen with your volume on. You can't turn it off in those instances. So again, that's like a limited exception, but it's something that makes it a little bit easier. Next slide. So the last thing I wanted to talk about is penalties. The Brown Act is a statutory scheme, and violating it can have, penalties. There can be civil actions, criminal complaints. I think the one thing that is of most concern to the agency as a whole is, here's the example. Let's say a majority of you congregate somewhere and make a decision. You're basically vote on it without it being noticed to the public. If that happens, that action can be invalidated. So that's kind of the big thing. You can take all those actions, I guess, but they won't be valid. There's a couple of cases that I've given that just are interesting examples, I think, of this happening. In the San Joaquin Raptor case, this is the case that kind of told us, okay, now we have to kind of be detailed when we describe an agenda item. What they did was, it was a planning commission. They wanted to subdivide some land. They didn't say in the agenda that they would be taking some action under the California Environmental Quality Act. They left that part out. So the action was invalidated. So since then, you have to be super, super careful. Every action that you plan to take as a committee, as a council, as a commission needs to be explained in the agenda. Hernandez v. Town of Apple Valley. This was another one where they didn't actually give proper notice that they were going to send an initiative to the voters and approve an MOU. So the special election that they wanted to hold was invalidated. So that's the sort of thing that can happen, and it's what makes it important to ensure that meetings are publicly noticed and properly. Next slide. So even though I talked a lot at you, and I'm sorry, that still is like the tip of the iceberg, as you know, with any, legal scheme or statutory scheme. There's all sorts of other issues that can pop up, and always there's a weird, unique circumstance that can happen. So I've given you some links to different things that you can go look into, different guidebooks and things like that might be helpful. You can always ask staff questions, but this is like if you're curious about the Brown Act on your own, you can look into these. Last slide. Next slide. Okay, yeah, so that's it. That's my contact information, and I am here if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Sherry. Any thoughts, comments, questions, concerns for Sherry about this presentation? I will say this, thank you for the education. And I know what I said. And so I think it's important because we are operating in this space that we understand the rules. And so when the team and I were talking about what information we wanted to put in front of you all to ensure your best success, it was having this information. We don't expect that, you need to know it all, but you have it in front of us, have it in front of you. And we want to be able to kind of like operate the most efficiently and effectively as possible. And so that's why we present this information to you all. So I think it will be helpful to you in any place that you go in that involves government work. I think this is a very helpful resource and a repository of information. So thank you again, Sherry, for that. Does anyone have any questions or concerns? But it's good, right? Okay, excellent. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you all
very much. And you did pretty good. You're 2 minutes over. I'm not mad at you. This is great for all that information. That's awesome. All right. I don't believe we have to do public comment, correct? Because there was no motion required. Right. Okay, awesome. All right. So you will also see in your packet next on the agenda, again, no motion is required. We, for 2 years, did not have quorum. And so after this packet of information, you'll see the previous meeting minutes. Because you were not present, you do not need to vote on them. We just want you to be able to see them and kind of acknowledge that you have seen them. What I'm taking of it also is seeing what kind of things were talked about in them. So I'm looking at the February 15th, 2023 minutes. I'm seeing that there was presentations about commercial electric lawn and garden program. I'm seeing legislative updates related to air quality as things that were presented to this group. If I look at the dates, May 17th, 2023 meeting minutes, I also see that information about AQMD Replace Your Ride program was shared. Also, updates on our mobile application were shared with the group as well. The next meeting minutes from 2022, August, also shared information about the Air Quality Management Plan overview, our AQMP overview, and then also a presentation about zero emission drayage truck projects was from that meeting. And then the last meeting minutes from November of 2022 included information about our Clean Fuels Program update, and then AB 2766 Motor Vehicle Subvention Fund update. So what I saw in these minutes were lots of presentations to the group. I'm not seeing as much information from the group. So I think that's not in alignment with the goal of this group. When I go to the charter, it says that it is to wait, I'm gonna pull it up right here. And I think we shared this with you. The synopsis of it is to say that the South Coast Air Quality Management District established the Young Leaders Advisory Council, YLAC, in 2017 to identify the air quality issues and concerns of youth and young adults ages 18-35 in the region. To identify means we need to find out from you all. This is not us talking at you. This is you talking to us. This is dialogue. Okay? Can't emphasize that enough. Your voice, empowering, encouraging, and really establishing your advocacy is critical. Okay? And so what you want, what is needed is part of that. So we'll get into that in another meeting. So I just want to reiterate that this is dialogue. This is not just presentation of information to you. This is what do you want to hear from? What can we present to you? And I'm fairly certain when I talked to the folks back then, they were like, people said, oh, I want to hear about Replace Your Ride. Okay, that's fine. You want to hear, we can give it to you. But I'm also wanting to make sure that we're getting information from you too. And that's what the minutes didn't necessarily reflect. Okay. All right. So we don't vote on the minutes. Is that right, Josie? It's just presenting. Okay. So we presented that. So any questions or any thoughts about the meeting minutes? Am I tapped in though? Like how y'all are seeing that you want to? Okay. All right. I'm hitting head nods. All right. So now we get into our discussion items. And so Number 6 on our agenda, resources provided by South Coast AQMD. Cassie Johnson, our Senior Public Affairs, is going to give you an overview of what we would like to provide to you.
Hi everyone, so you'll notice in your packet, the last 3 pages, it includes a list of acronyms. So I do want to point out to you that this is not an exhaustive list of acronyms, but it is the most commonly used ones. What you're going to find is South Coast AQMD leverages heavily on science, and science unfortunately tends to be acronym heavy. So we've included that list for you in this packet for you to keep. And that actually will come out in one of the other additional resources that we will be providing to you. So one of the first ones is going to be this book, The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein. Some of you who were student interns might already have this book, but that's okay. You have another copy now to share and discuss with other people some of the issues that are outlined in this book. When we first started DEI here, we're a relatively new division. As some of you heard in the beginning, YLAC was under another division. It's been moved under us. So because we're new, we had a lot of staff asking us questions about what does a DEI approach to air quality look like? And so Ms. Cesar Johnson here, she started a book club here at South Coast AQMD with this as our first book. And this book goes over the issue of redlining. And the way that it's written, it really does take you on a journey to dismantle some preconceived notions about environmental justice and how it's come to be and how we can look at it as a fact, like a point of fact that this has happened. So we're providing this to you because this is a notion that we're taking continually to reinforce with our staff that this is something that they should be aware of while we work on our other issues as a regulatory body. The next resource that we're giving you.
Hold on one second, pause. Have y'all heard the color law before?
Yeah.
Okay. Is anyone is brand new to anyone? Okay, good. Okay. So do y'all have the book already? All right, so cool. That's all right. You're gonna take the extra copy anyway. It's like Oprah, you get a book, you get a book.
So the next resource we're providing is From the Inside Out by Jill Lindsay Harrison. So this book, when we were first talking to staff in our book club, so this one, The Color of Law, and we've done others since, we were hearing that, we see resistance, and is this book, and this book, what it does is it shows you how resistance to environmental justice approaches can actually take root in other regulatory agencies. So we feel like this one is important for you to know, especially since you all will be working with us to help fighting the issues that are outlined in this. So you'll be getting this as a resource as well.
It's on blast, y'all. It shows you how systemic oppression shows up, right? And it's like people will be like, we're working for environmental justice, but people seem to be resistant to that, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, because it's more from this lens and not lens. It's like, are we really arguing from lenses? Yeah. Like, are we fighting for the issue? Or for us, I think it was really powerful because there are some people who would come into work in our agency and be like, what's redlining? Mm-hmm. True that. And more so, I don't think that is necessarily bad on them. I think about what education did you just get? What education from what area, from what institution, organization for you not to know how redlining has showing up? And so it's been very eye-opening for many, many staff to be like, I did not know this, or understanding the trauma that our communities are facing, and not historical, but contemporary forms of environmental injustice. So we have those. So excellent. Thanks, Cassie.
Yeah, so the copies are on this table up front, so you will grab them on your way out. All right.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. Right. Cookie. He gave you reading. But it's good reading. It's really good reading. I think there was one that there's a wonderful thing. I can't remember the name of it right now, but it's like a 10-minute little video that kind of accompanies that kind of talks about the color of law. And it's more, the book itself is based nationally, but he focuses on a section that is the 10 freeway in LA and the history of how the 10 freeway came. And it's a really powerful story if you think about like the neighborhood used to be like, oh, great. And then when they thought it wasn't so great, they're like, okay, go ahead, brown folks, move in. Wait, what? A freeway is coming? What? No, we want the land back. and then they wouldn't give the land back. So then they start to do eminent domain. And then there's even now for Black History Month, I don't know if you all seen a bunch of different things about Bruce's Beach, something in Manhattan Beach where eminent domain was used to be able to take people's property away. So there's really contemporary forms of a lot of injustice that have come around environment.
That to gauge how you want to interface with us. What are issues in there that maybe speak to you, or what's not in there that speaks to you that you want to bring up here?
Excellent.
I feel very hopeful.
Oh.
Being in the past ones, this is so different. I love it.
Oh, it is my birthday. Oh, awesome. Thank you. Awesome. All right. So next up is really for us to hear from you all. All right. So number 7 on the agenda is YLAC community issues and concerns. So as we talked before, the mission of our advisory council is to educate and engage young adults regarding the region's clean air issues, and at the same time, to garner from them greater insight into their generation's concerns, values, and priorities about air quality to their peers and to others. Right? That is our goal. That is our mission. That is why we are in existence. So that being said, I'd like to hear from you all about what would success look like for you, right? What would you like to see achieved? What are some issues and concerns you have within your own communities that you would like to elevate? And so then my goal is that we will create presentation of information. We would also ask presentation of information from you all as well. So again, a very symbiotic relationship, not you tell us, we tell you. It's more symbiotic. So just want to hear back from you all. What are the issues and concerns you have within your own communities? And I'm not going to do no more clockwise, whatever. Y'all just tell me which one.
Well, the Inland Empire is a really big logistics area. And I think something that I want to know is a call to action. What should I be doing? What should my communities be doing? How can we affect this issue? AB 1000, which was authored by Eloise Reyes, is kind of stagnated. And that was supposed to help with warehouses and sensitive receptors. So kind of what happens now? And what can we do to continue to advocate for ourselves? I know something I'm very interested in is like more robust community agreements with Amazon and other warehouses that come into our communities. What does that look like? How can I have a seat at that table and bring my community to that decision-making process?
Right.
Aside from STC for All, which is the Sepulveda Transit Corridor for All, there's another coalition amongst UCLA students advocating for heavy rail, the heavy rail alternative, in addition to having a UCLA station with the Sepulveda Transit Corridor. So I'm hoping to see more, I guess, more leniency with Metro to hopefully advocate for those to be put in place.
Okay.
The Coachella Valley is very
Which valley?
Coachella Valley.
Coachella,
We're geographically distant from the rest of AQMD, and that I would like to learn more about their the organization's work within the valley and what involvement, if any, within Lithium Valley and Imperial County, since where the Lithium Valley is it's kind of divided between Riverside County and Imperial.
Having come from my village and origin story being with the Chiquita Canyon landfill fight, and then also now having moved somewhere relatively close to the EcoBat facility. One thing that I've been, and also I work in, aside from teaching, I work in Santa Ana. And so one thing I've been repeatedly hearing and is issues of outreach when it comes to the district, or like accessibility of from the community in terms of reaching people at the district when it comes to issues in the community. Like when there are issues, folks are like, oh, I reached out to someone at the Air Quality Management District, but they didn't come for many months. And so I'm just curious about kind of like what that process looks like, and like maybe what the planning and sort of like issues of planning and learning a bit more about if there are like developments anticipated in that area. And then the other thing is that kind of in the same vein, just wanting to learn more about the communications and outreach. the district does. As an educator, I get a lot of emails from various agencies and also like other organizations asking like, can I come speak to your class? That sort of thing, right? And so that's like one example where, you know, I'm just kind of interested in learning more about ways the district does or is planning to increase outreach or like thinking about like social media strategies and whatnot. Or like I know a lot of organizations and agencies are also experimenting with like micro influencer programs, things like that. So yeah, just really interested to learn more about those and maybe we can provide some input there.
At the same time as you're interested in learning, you also want to be able to influence what's being done because there's a concern that people can't get a hold of AQMD, because that's what I heard you in there also say. It's like people, so correct me if I'm wrong. You don't want to just get a presentation of it. You also want to be able to have it be this. You might try these approaches when interacting with us, right? Don't just do it the way that you've done it. Pay attention to how this generation operates. Try something different because it's too hard to try to navigate some of these systems if you just do it the same old way. So I'm reading into it and I'm reaching, but I'm trying to pull out from you the issue you said, which was about communications.
Right. Yeah. And I assume maybe after like, if we get a presentation, that after that, maybe at the next meeting that we could discuss right after we've absorbed the information and taken it back and thought about it.
So what I would also encourage you to do is to, and I'm again putting out there, right now it doesn't feel good, like the communication isn't there for you. So that is fine. I don't think we have to even start with the presentation to hear something from point. I think you can actually say, I would like better communication. And what does better communication look like? I would like it on social media. I would like there to be a number. I think there should be a name. I think you can give us stuff too. You can say what you need as well. I'm saying that to everyone, right? Because I think that, you know, I'm going to boldly go there. We have 6 generations of people who work in this AQMD. And we've just come out of like teleworking, right? And so this is changing us all up, right? So I think Sherry mentioned it too, like how, you know, there's some benefit that came from it, right? Like, and it has happened, but there's some folks who are like, can we just go back to the way that it was? Can you come into the office 4 days a week and be here from 8 to 10? And, you know, and it's like, no, we want to do something different. So I'm also hearing from you all, like I want you to tell us also how we can better connect with the community. That's the part. I don't want you to just wait and have us tell you what we're doing. Sometimes I think you need to just tell us up front what will work. Don't shy away from it, right? Because you all know you best, right? Okay. All right. What else we got? Yes.
I think adding to that, really creating, getting a better sense of like the community engagement portion, because I feel like there's, you know, AQMD offers rebate programs, you know, like training programs, whatever it is, and not a lot of folks know about the program. Like, also, is it accessible in different languages? I know I've seen it like in English and Spanish, but you know, really targeting certain communities that are being affected by these issues. I'd like to see that. Just having more boots on the ground, like that AQMD exists, that it's an agency and it's here to really, you know, connect people with, you know, their right to healthier communities. So a little sidebar, but I told my mom that, you know, that I'm part of this now, and she said, lo and behold, she works at a grocery store, and one of the permits had the AQMD logo, and she made that connection. So how do we make that connection for folks where they can recognize, you know, AQMD and what it stands for and what it does for them? So I think, again, having just boots on the ground, you know, if it's going to more like fairs or getting your name out there, just ways to engage more. I think we're definitely pointless to be in this room, but how do we get more people into this room and know that these issues, and they have a voice, right? So I think that's I'd like to see.
One thing that you mentioned also was you see things in English and Spanish, right? But only English and Spanish, right? And so what is the litmus for another language? Just speaking real, like at what point does someone decide that they want it to be in another language? What is the litmus by which the decision gets made that you now will put something in Korean? How is the decision making around what languages? Is it based on the census data? Is it based on who's come to the meeting? At what point is that done and how is it done? And so tell us about your processes to be able to get that, because we would then tell you, you know what, we need to have something in Mandarin, and we need to have something in Japanese, and we need to have something in Vietnamese because of our communities. That's how you're going to engage people, is to have it in their own language, right? And so sometimes people want to be able to complain in their own language, right? And if they can't do that, then they will just disengage. And so if you want engagement, you need to be able to put in those languages. So I would even want us to start really looking into how do we make those decisions about what languages, and so how can we constantly update that and translate an interpretation too, right? Okay, yeah, I'm hearing you.
In that same vein, I have no idea if there's like an ethnic media strategy that anyone at the district works on or implements in some way.
What kind of media do you
An ethnic media.
Ethnic media?
Yeah.
Tell me what ethnic media is.
Like local newspapers, or even national newspapers that are usually usually focus on like an ethnic community. So in Orange County, that might include like Nuoi Viet or Viet Bao for the Vietnamese community. I am totally blanking on some of the other publications I know about. But yeah, usually they're like more locally focused. There's a couple national ones. But if anyone, if anyone working on different programs or whatnot has like an ethnic media strategy, I'd be really interested to know what it is. If not, maybe that means that there should be like a centralized development of.
Yeah, you just flipped that right there. You said, even if it's not, let's do that. Yeah, I like that.
I also didn't want to just, the other reason I was like, I want to learn more about some of these things, is I don't want to, I don't want to be like, here's some ideas. And then people are like, well, that already exists. Yeah, just if there's a ethnic media strategy, would love to learn about it. If not, maybe we can figure out some things.
No, I hear you. And I don't want to discount anything. We only meet quarterly. That's the thing, right? And so I want to make sure that this is an effective use of you all's time. I want to make sure that you all come back for year 2, if that's even possible, for you a little bit longer, because you've been around for a minute, in a good way. You're my litmus test of like, okay, what's been done. And so I feel like I want to be able to be effective for your use of time. But again, I want to get back to that. We need to get your influence, and I need for y'all's influence to impact the work that we do, because you all are a generation that is the most impacted, but isn't necessarily the most vocalized. So I hear you. All right. Mark.
I would like to see a strategy about how AQMD provides comments at public body hearings. For example, I work for the city of Santa Ana, and just in general for Orange County, a lot of our development is currently happening along the 5, right? And it's because it's the real estate market, people will buy. There's obviously the air quality is not that great again along the 5. So, and sometimes I wonder when I'm at these like the council meetings, I'm like, where's AQMD? And you guys aren't there. So I would like to see if there's a strategy, and if not, how can that bridge, not so much in terms of advocacy, but more in terms of just providing information, like in this area, there's the health considerations, so that councils take into consideration.
And particularly the health.
Yes.
Yeah, the health effects. Okay. All right. Excellent. Good. Joshua?
Considering a little bit of the history of the South Coast Air Quality Management District, many of these counties once may have had more separated sub-districts for like their air quality management. And considering all of these things that I'm hearing, I'm almost wondering if it would be possible to have remote locations, or how should I say, places of public forum that we would be able to interact with our communities at a distance, and thus make it more accessible to them in a person-to-person sense. Now, that's probably a logistical nightmare fiscally, but I believe that the condensing of all of our facilities and structures into this location in Diamond Bar has sort of limited the possibility of public interaction, especially from our more distant reaches. Additionally, I almost feel like remote locations might be practical in certain senses because of how many remote sensing locations and facilities we have all across our reach. So I would like to look into the considerations or possibilities of reintroducing remote locations, especially for promoting public forum or informing individuals of those specific communities of what is available to them. But
So at minimum, you're seeing the need for increased, not just outreach, but engagement in the community.
presence, yes.
Yes. Because to me, engagement implies like a one-off,
Yes.
right? But you're saying constant, right? Right. Other folks, issues or concerns that you'd like this group to address?
At least in my community, there's a lack of green spaces. And I feel like.
And what's your community again?
It's the Southeast LA part. So like Bell Gardens, Maywood, Bell. And we're also along the 710. So maybe having more green spaces, talking about it, or the ones that already exist, like upkeep or management. I would like to see that.
Okay. Just as a quick, complete and side note, because I was in another meeting elsewhere, in this meeting, I'm struck by it. How important are green spaces in y'all's communities? Just show of hands. Right. Okay. And so, there are folks who are like, well, it doesn't reduce that much emissions, but there's so much stuff that it does before it gets to that. And so hearing you speak to that really resonates with me, because there are several different people who are working in our agency who are talking about this and working on this thing. Yeah, it's green spaces. I hear you.
It also serves as a rest spot. Like in my community, there's a lot of people that walk a lot. So, but in our streets, there's no trees. So having a green space, especially for seniors, and people that walk their kids, like it serves as a rest spot and just a place to like not dehydrate, I guess, when you're walking in the sun.
Oh, I totally get it.
So my interest is in like sidewalk and transit amenities and, bus stops, things like that for transit riders, and kind of improving the perception of public transit. So yeah, it all ties into like shade, and it ties into shade equity and like the heat urban island and everything. But yeah, I would just like to get more transit planners, transit agencies, and people on the ground that are representative of the communities they represent, because I work in that field, and some of those people are like, they don't even take the bus. They don't understand what that feels like. So I've been working with a company, and they're trying to, it's not La Sombrita, but it's like a vertical shade structure. I'm just saying that right off the bat. But yeah, I just want to talk a little bit more about that with you guys a little bit later.
Excellent.
And then within the Coachella Valley, we just experienced 6 months ago, Tropical Storm Hillary. So that brought a lot of air quality issues for about 4 or 5 months after the storm. So I know I suffer from intense allergy, just airborne allergies. So maybe something to evaluate those type of extreme weather events, because deserts shouldn't have hurricanes.
Shouldn't.
Yes. But also because a lot of rain has come into LA County and Orange County in the last couple weeks, trying to prevent the same air quality issues in those regions as well.
Sir?
Just being openly transparent, I might have a very minimal knowledge in regards to air quality management, or in regards to the government projects that do affect our communities. But I have quite the open mind, so to say, and sort of wanting to know like how can South Coast AQMD sort of foster that environment to where people like me who might not have the knowledge or previous knowledge, and how we could use our personal like motivation and advocacies to help gain that knowledge, and also just to learn more of how we can improve our communities.
Not trying to make it about me, except about to make it about me. So I've been teaching diversity and social justice for like years. And I lived in Seattle for a great part of my life. My children were born in Seattle, which is arguably one of the most rainiest places on the planet. I moved here, back down here. I was born and raised in Inglewood, California. I was born and moved back in with my mother, who lived in Paramount. And within 2 months, my kids started to experience asthma symptoms. And within 2 months, I, who just came from the, rainy place, all of a sudden had a vitamin D deficiency. And so even though I had primarily worked in higher education doing diversity, equity, inclusion, that became my thing. Because I'm like, how can this happen? Like, what is going on? And then I was completely aware of the food deserts. I was completely, just mindful of, check cashing places and not banks and, like all these, so many fast food places. I'm like, oh, you're just really trying to slow roll me into death.
Yeah.
Right. And so I am so happy and pleased that I switched from higher education into this work. And so I too am learning a lot. Like one of the reasons why we started a book club was for my learning, right? So like I can admit my ignorance and I'm okay with that. But I'm not staying there, and so I applaud you for even bringing it up, but I hear you and I see you. And so for me, it is a personal a choice that I couldn't step away from. And I tell my boss all the time, like, I am so happy you hired me because I really feel like this is where I'm supposed to be because I got a vitamin D deficiency and my kids start to have asthma, right? 2 months after moving here. So it doesn't matter how you got here. It matters that you're here. Anyone else want to share? Yes.
Yeah, so for me, I am from LA County and I used to live in the community around my university, which is USC. And one thing I noticed is that the places around campus are always like new buildings are built around these places and it causes a lot of like air pollution. But I know that it's impossible to like not allow people to build buildings around these places. And also like on these communities, the houses are really close to each other. So I think that it's if you build one building, that will influence a lot of people around there. So I think this is my concerns about my community.
Okay. Awesome.
Different notes. I'm wondering if AQMD did a update, a 4 reports or an update on the Tustin fire hangar, because I never saw anything related to that, even though there was some association there.
You said the Tustin
Fire
hangar?
Hangar fire, yeah.
So I'm hearing a couple things. I'm hearing throughout a lot of the things that y'all are talking about is the health effects, but health effects post-crises, like these environmental crises kind of thing. And so whether it be nature or whether it be somebody did something with that hangar, where if it's a criminal act or whatever, right? So, all right. And so I got project development. I got a lot around what are our processes, because you all are telling me you all don't know our processes. And for AQMD to be an agency of the people, for people to not know processes is a problem, right? And so how user-friendly is it for those people in other languages? What's the branding? How do you get people to utilize the resources? I'm hearing a lot of regional concerns. Real deal. We were talking about just for a few seconds, Inland Empire, like in the warehouses and the trucks and all that stuff, like that's a huge impact, right? And so if we get into this, well, we're more polluted than you are, right? It's like that's not the goal. I'm just keeping it real. Like we can all be polluted. And so it does that. We don't need to have a hierarchy of pollution. So in DEI, there's this thing called hierarchy of oppressions, where someone can say, well, I'm more oppressed than you. Someone might be historically, oppressed, but more is not, it's not the term I think we're looking for, right? Mm-hmm. So we can exist in spaces to know that if we bring up the Inland Empire does not mean we're hating on South LA. Or if we bring up Riverside, that means that we're being anti-Eastern Coachella Valley. Like we need to be able to be in space with one another and hear that and focus on that and not think that just bringing it up means that we're being anti anyone. I feel like I need to say that because there are times in which you're like, well, I need to speak for my community because we haven't been talked about, right? You all are going to be those voices to talk about, and everyone's going to have equitable space to do that, right? But what I'm hearing y'all say is you want to be able to talk about the specificities of your particular community and not have someone be upset by that, right? So I guess I'm putting out there, can we all at least agree to like that being okay? Like if we talk about Southeast LA, if we talk about Paramount, y'all not gonna get mad. Just a little bit. Okay, all right, cool. No, okay, excellent. Okay. All right, so I think for us, the goals here is developing of our goals and objectives for 2020-24. So what would be success for you all at the end of I think we meet, this is the first quarter meeting, right? So we'll meet again in May, and then we'll meet again in August and in November. So we meet 4 times a year, right? So in November, what would success look like for you all? What would need to take place for you all to feel like your year was a success?
More electric transportation, along with locomotives and any type of freight movement. I feel like that's important.
I would say just more accessibility for the public to engage, creating more of like a streamline of it.
For me, it would be not just like the quantitative data of like ridership on public transit, but also like the qualitative, getting the faces of people, what they look like, what their daily commutes look like.
Being able to halt more warehouse developments that are just staying there as blight, pretty much.
I'll go with the warehouses. 'Cause more insight, I guess this kind of touches back on the last topic set too, as far as sort of the success failures and learned experiences from rulemaking processes like the Ports ISR that might be coming at some point following the warehouses ISR that's gone into those factors.
It don't have to be like kicking Amazon out of Southern California. That don't have to be the goal. That doesn't have to be the goal, right? But this is 4 meetings with us. How would you, I want you to tell me what we can do to make you feel good about your time in 4 meetings with us. What does that look like?
Maybe gaining like knowledge, both tangible and intangibly, in terms of what can we learn in terms of future action items that we can also share as leaders in our communities and share to our like local communities as well.
I think meaningful engagement and partnership, not only with AQMD, but with each other and the work that we're doing regionally.
So learning more about what you all are doing.
Yeah, and like doing things together, working within organizations and with each other.
Joshua?
Okay. Well,
I did see your hand up, right? I'm not just trying to call on you.
you did.
Okay,
It's
okay.
just a little bit nebulous in my head. I would feel pretty accomplished if things that we discuss and talk about here in YLAC do end up imparting change or at least aid in decision-making at more of the board level, especially in terms of concepts like improvement of construction techniques or air quality management, as Yifan mentioned, perhaps expansion of more tributary transportation networks for like rail methods, heavy rail methods, because of how inaccessible it can be for some individuals in those communities to just get to that kind of vein of transit. That's something I'm more personally interested in exploring as well. But overall, I would feel extremely fulfilled discussing with other people, getting that information, how they feel about these things, and potentially how our voices can impact those board decisions.
Yes. Love it. They appointed you. So how, like, they appointed you. So what is the impact of the appointment of me to this board? So what does that mean that you're going to listen to us? Like, so there is an establishment of a relationship, the establishment of a situationship where you all are to, like, you appointed us, so you can't ignore us.
Gotta listen.
You got to listen. So if you've looked at our history, if you looked at our background, if you looked at our resumes and all of these things, if you have decided that we are worthy of this honor to be on this, then we want you to hear us.
Exactly.
Okay. That's not at all nebulous. That is good. We can always revisit this if folks need time, because true diversity of thought means not everybody thinks off the top of their head, right? So sometimes folks need to just circle back, and that's fine. So I just want to put that out there, right? So the purpose of this is so we can kind of sort of come up with some goals and objectives. And so I, again, have read the charter through and through. Our whole team has, like, okay, what is this? Because we were creating stuff. And so we will be reporting back to the administrative committee about our goals and objectives. So that will be the first thing that'll happen, is that we will share with those groups, and then that will then get elevated to the board members. So I provide monthly updates to the administrative committee about the different DEI issues and concerns and concepts that we're working on. So there will be that kind of information that gets shared. And so I'm super mindful of what Sherry talked about in terms of meetings and special meetings and so forth. So I'm not going to call no special meetings. We're not going to hit reply all to things, right? But we definitely want to submit some goals to you all for review, so that the next time we're in space together, you all can agree to them and say, nope, change this up and this up and that kind of thing, right? And so is there anything that you all really truly feel like at the next meeting you would really like to see? Like in a May meeting, is there anything that you all would like really like to hear about or would like to elevate?
Progress on the warehouse indirect source rule that got passed back in 2021, I believe.
This is kind of a sidebar, but I think it'd be nice to maybe do like a group norms activity at some point, like just as a, we're gonna facilitate our meetings, or I think it's just nice to establish something of each other.
Like how we will
Yeah,
meet is, okay.
Yeah, like even it's, listening to one another, like not, speaking over one another. I think that's just important. Establish.
Gotcha. I think we absolutely can do that. Let me ask this question. Knowing that Sherry said what it's like to have someone be at a meeting in their house and have to do a public notice, what is the likelihood that you all would come to AQMD 4 times a year?
Pretty high. Pretty high.
Yeah.
I prefer that.
Okay. Food too, right?
It's a pretty big boom.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. That'll make Susan happy. Susan be like, are they coming? Like Susan really likes, like, are they coming? I'm like, they're coming. She's like, oh, I'm not gonna be here. So okay. So know that our intention is that for this meeting, we were in person because it was the first meeting, right? And so that was why it was critical. We are recognizing that folks are in school and folks have businesses and folks have jobs and folks have children. And, we are in a castle looking building at the intersection of the 57 and the 60, and it's not the most convenient for everybody, right? And so we will have an allowance for participation to not always be in person. Okay, so that is just, we can't just say you have to be, that's just not going to come out of our mouths, right? So however you all can show up is how you're going to show up, right? We will still have to do the things that we mentioned before. So like, happy to have public comments and all that kind of stuff. We will do that. So that'll be a real thing. But we want you to be able to participate however you can, because we don't want to be stuck like we were where folks were like, not participating, because I think they were saying something like, I'm not seeing myself in this. And I need you all to see yourself in this, right? And so I'm hearing that there needs to be some symbiotic interaction with staff, some symbiotic interaction with board members, in terms of like seeing whatever impact that you all have is being heard. Okay, all right. All right, so we'll work on some draft goals and objectives to be able to present to you all in our meeting minutes, so that you'll have something to be able to look at and say yes, no, not. We'll add some group norms in terms of the next meeting so that we can talk about like what are going to be, how do we talk, how do we interact, how do we, say something, just talk to me about anything right now.
What kind of ice cream do you feel like?
Oh my God, ice cream. Okay. So some folks might say, oh my God, she was talking about ice cream and you interrupted her. Right. And I'm just like, oh no, I feel you. Right. So in styles of communication, some groups will talk with each other, but other people perceive that as interruption. Right. And so it's a cultural thing. Right. So I'm just like, yeah, ice cream. Whoa. And so I'm like, oh my God, she's just making it about her. She's talking about, she asked the question and that's not actually the case. And so I think what you're saying is we're all coming from different places and spaces and work in different environments. And so it'll be really important to establish group norms so that folks won't get offended or folks may not take offense or, we can just understand.
Yeah.
So what?
Or feel left out.
Or feel left out. Absolutely. 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 We can definitely do that. And I do think that because again, we only meet 3 times more, there should be some presentation of information from the board or from the staff on some of the issues of that. So if our team could maybe take note for maybe a survey that we could reach out to folks maybe in a few weeks after we've had a time to think about it to see where what items that folks would like to hear about to the group. And we can reach out to you all and after you've thought about it a little bit and see what we can do. And then maybe what we can do is maybe set aside a time for there to be a presentation and then maybe something that might be more timely. Like we could plot out the next 3 meetings with presentations, but something might come up that may be really relevant. So we might need to save some space for something to add to the agenda. Okay. All right. So a survey. Awesome. Thank you. All right. So I believe that we are at other business. And so any member of the committee or its staff on his or her own initiative or in response to any questions posed by the public may ask a question for clarification, may make a brief announcement or report on his or her own activities, provide a reference to staff regarding factual information, request staff report back at a subsequent meeting concerning any matter, or may take action to direct staff on a matter, place a matter of business on a future agenda, which I think we kind of sort of did.
Yeah.
But is there anything else that folks would want in terms of other business? Anything updates or anything you all would like to share with the larger group?
I have a question.
Absolutely.
So I noticed that in the previous agendas, the members are referred to using like gendered prefixes or honorifics, and I'm wondering if that's going to be retained in future or meetings. Meeting minutes. I'm wondering if that's going to be retained or if there's a need for honorifics that maybe member or some other gender neutral term to be used.
So, like when they put Miss in front of stuff?
Yeah.
No. You asking if we're gonna do that?
If that's going to be like retained in future meeting minutes.
That is not my intent, because if we have not asked you what your pronouns are, I don't want to make assumptions of that. So I don't think it has a place in the meeting minute. That's my default. Does anyone have any concerns with just using the name? See right there, you just don't even know what you just did in the best way possible. We do this all the time and they don't understand, like a lot of folks don't understand, like, we don't do that. So thank you. Okay. All right. So no using of, what is that term that you just used?
Like they're either like prefixes or like honorifics or
Honorifics.
yeah.
Honorifics. Okay, gotcha. Well, I use doctor because I only get a penny every time I do. At least that's what I tell myself with student loans are due, y'all. It ain't no joke. All right, so honorifics. All right. All right, so then I think we're at the point on the agenda where, unless there's anyone else who has anything they'd like to share. All right, so at the end of the regular meeting, an opportunity is also provided for the public to speak on any subject within the committee's authority that is not on the agenda. Speakers may be limited to 3 minutes each. Do we have any people on the call that need to speak?
Don't see any at this time.
All right, thank you, Paul. Paul, I know they just met you, but Paul, how many years have you worked within our agency?
32.
Paul is going to be retiring at the end of the month. And he's worked here for 32 years. So can we give Paul a round of applause?
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You like how I just snuck that in there, huh?
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I'll get it later, I'm sure. Okay. All right. So if there are no public comment at this time, our next meeting date is Wednesday, May 15th, 2024 at 12:30 p.m. You should expect to receive meeting minutes prior to that meeting so that you can review. You should also expect to receive a survey from us that would ask if there are any other additional items you would like to see brought to the attention of this meeting. Is there anything else that I have missed, staff?
So you were given a member information form before. I think some of you might have had some issues with it. That form is still live and it's always going to be. So let's say you find out you have a new food allergy, for example, you can resubmit that form with your new information and we will get notified of that. So just keep that in mind. Oh.
Please remember to send your stipends.
They don't, I don't think, how will they receive it? Like, what do they need to do for?
There's a form that you would fill out to get paid for the meeting.
Did we send that form to them?
I believe they have it in their email.
Yes, I believe it was those were PDF forms that we filled out and then returned, or emailed back, I believe.
So, but they have to do something every meeting though?
Yeah, if you like to get paid for the meeting.
So maybe we should resend out the process so that people will know the process. So that is an action item on our part again, is that we will send out the information again so that you all can receive a stipend for your time here, right? Okay, so we will do that. There will be a survey. There will be meeting minutes for what you all need to review. And please, oh, please take the books that you all, if you were a former intern, or even if you already had the book, I would highly encourage you to get the book and gift it to someone, because it truly, either one of them, I think they've been really great in the work that we do. And what I appreciate about the books is that it academizes, yes, I just made that word up. It academizes the stuff that we're talking about. It validates some of the experiences that folks have had when they're doing this environmental injustice work and experience resistance from people who they think should know better, but don't do better. Right. And so I again am glad to be in space with you all, because this, I think, is proof that although we've come in from different places and different spaces, we are all doing better. So on that note, meeting adjourned at, what does Siri say? 2:13 p.m. Thank you. Thank you very much.